Did you get along with everyone on the Golden Girls? I mean,
oh yes,
you did.
Oh yes, Bea was not that fond of me, but
yeah, why not? I've heard that.
I don't know, but I loved Bea and I admired her.
Bea Arthur spent 7 years pretending to be best friends with someone she couldn't stand. On screen, the Golden Girls looked like 4 women who adored each other. But behind the cameras, something darker was happening. There were phone calls at midnight where Bea used words no one expected. There were moments on flights where insults came out loud enough for everyone to hear. And when the show finally ended in 1992, it wasn't because of ratings. One actress simply refused to come back. The real story of what happened between those 2 women is stranger than anything the writers ever put in a script.
All I was worried about was that it would be good, the one segment.
Bea Arthur entered the world as Bernice Frankel on May 13, 1922, in Brooklyn. And even her own name made her feel uneasy, so she asked everyone to call her Bea. Her parents, Rebecca and Philip, tried to build a good life through a custom dress shop. But when money got tight in 1933, they packed up and moved to Cambridge, Maryland. Bea was 11 then, old enough to know that the move meant starting over. Cambridge was small, quiet, and not especially welcoming to Jewish families, so she often felt like she didn't quite belong. Still, she watched her parents work long hours to keep their new clothing store alive, and little by little their determination rubbed off on her. Those early years shaped her sense of discipline in ways she didn't fully understand yet. But the feeling stayed with her. As she grew taller, she grew lonelier. By 12, Bea stood at 5 feet 9 and towered over everyone in her school. Kids whispered and pointed because she didn't look like anyone else. She called herself shy and awkward, and the neighborhood didn't make things easier. But something unexpected happened whenever she stepped into a room where music played. Her parents held fashion shows for their shop, and during those events, Bea sang big band songs like "Are You From Dixie?" and "I'm Putting All My Eggs in One Basket." It felt like the one place where she wasn't too tall, too different, or too strange. The spotlight warmed her, and the eyes on her didn't feel judgmental anymore. They felt curious, they felt inviting, and that gave her something to hold on to. Even with all the discomfort of being the odd one out, Bea found a voice that wasn't just for singing. She was witty. She was quick. She could turn a moment around with a single line. Her classmates voted her the wittiest girl in school. They loved her Mae West impersonation. She wasn't sure if they were laughing with her or at her at first, but the laughter kept coming and she learned how to shape it. She spent afternoons flipping through movie magazines, imagining what it would feel like to be someone people watched on purpose. Her parents, however, wanted stability. They wanted safety. And that tension followed her through her teenage years. Yet her dreams kept pulling at her, and the feeling of being different pushed her forward instead of holding her down. Then the world shifted. In 1943, at just 20, Bea enlisted in the United States Marine Corps Women's Reserve only 5 days after women were allowed to join. The Marines were so new to the idea that they handed her Navy paperwork, and since she was under 21, her parents had to sign for her. Her enlistment date was February 18, 1943. She stepped in as a private, one of the first 20,000 women Marines during the war. It was a decision that surprised the people around her, yet somehow made perfect sense to her. She wanted purpose. She wanted to prove she could handle whatever came her way. Basic training at Hunter College in New York placed her behind a desk in Washington, D.C., typing forms and reports. It didn't take long before she felt restless. Desk work wasn't enough. So in June 1943, she pushed for a transfer to motor transport school at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. That request alone showed the determination that would later define her acting career. She arrived at Camp Lejeune in July 1943, ready to do more than sit at a typewriter. From 1944 through 1945, Bea became a truck driver and dispatcher at the Marine Corps Air Station in Cherry Point, North Carolina. She earned steady promotions, reaching corporal in August 1943, sergeant in December 1943, and staff sergeant by June 1945. She managed vehicle movements and personnel coordination during a time when mistakes could cost lives. Colleagues described her as reliable and capable, and her own records reflected that same respect. After the war, she left the Marines in September 1945 with an honorable discharge and plans to go to dramatic school. Yet, for reasons she kept to herself, Bea later denied ever serving. In a 2001 interview, she said she had never been in the military at all. The truth came out only in 2010, 1 year after her death, when the National Archives released her official file. Her son said she rarely talked about those years, except to mention that she could drive anything. Once she returned to civilian life, the stage called to her again. Her big break came in 1954 when she played Lucy Brown in The Threepenny Opera during its off-Broadway revival at the Theatre de Lys. The show opened on March 10th and ran until May 30th, 1954. Even though her role was small, she stood out enough that she was given an extra number to sing. Lotte Lenya starred as Jenny, and Bea quickly realized Lenya could teach her something rare. Lenya's acting was sharp and subtle. Bea learned the power of doing less to say more, something that stayed with her throughout her career. The production became a landmark hit. It ran longer than any off-Broadway show before it, and helped push Bea into the world she always dreamed about. Alongside her growing stage career, her personal life was taking shape. She married actor and director Gene Saks on May 28, 1950. They adopted 2 boys together. Matthew was born in 1961 and later became an actor. Daniel followed in 1964 and became a set designer. Their marriage lasted 28 years until 1978. Even after they separated, Bea often said Gene had been a huge source of support early on. Their home was filled with creativity, and their sons grew up surrounded by scripts, costumes, and the constant buzz of theater life. Before Broadway embraced her fully, Bea went through years of smaller performances. She sang in nightclubs. She appeared on TV variety shows with hosts like Steve Allen, Sid Caesar, Jack Parr, Art Carney, and Perry Como. Each appearance gave her another chance to sharpen her timing and another room full of people to win over. In 1954, she became a regular on Sid Caesar's Caesar's Hour and found herself surrounded by some of the greatest comedic talents of the era. These early steps laid the foundation for her future. She learned how to hold an audience. She learned how to land a joke. And she learned how to command attention without forcing it. Then came 1964 and the chance to originate Yente the Matchmaker in the Broadway premiere of Fiddler on the Roof. The show opened on September 22nd at the Imperial Theater after tryouts in Detroit and Washington, D.C. Director Jerome Robbins was known for his intensity, and during rehearsals he cut her part down significantly. Bea never forgot it. She had strong feelings about the way Robbins treated her, and she carried that bitterness for years. Still, she delivered a memorable performance, and the show became an enormous success. It ran for more than 3,200 performances and won 9 Tony Awards. Even with the reduced stage time, her role helped cement her as a Broadway actress with range and depth. Bea Arthur stepped into the world of Mame in May 1966 with a kind of confidence that felt lived in, as if she had carried the character of Vera Charles long before the curtain ever rose at the Winter Garden Theater. The show was directed by her husband, Gene Saks, and Angela Lansbury shone beside her as Mame Dennis, which helped the whole production come alive in a way that pulled audiences in night after night. Soon it became clear that this musical wasn't just a hit. It was turning into a Broadway force that ran for 1,508 performances. Bea's bold humor and sharp timing shaped Vera into someone unforgettable, someone who could drink, joke, and charm an entire room without lifting a finger. That performance earned her the 1966 Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a Musical. And the production itself gathered 8 nominations with 3 wins. People kept talking about how fearless she was, how her voice seemed to carve its own path through every song, and how the cast recording released that same year kept the show's brassy energy alive long after the final bow. Years kept moving, but their bond stayed intact. So when 1989 arrived, Angela Lansbury picked up the phone and asked Bea to share one more moment with her. 23 years had passed since their original run, yet when they came together on stage at the Tony Awards to perform Bosom Buddies, it felt like time folded in on itself. The Mark Hellinger Theater filled with cheers the moment they stepped into the spotlight. The duet, full of playful bickering and affection, reminded everyone why their partnership stood out in Broadway history. The two women laughed, teased, and leaned into the warmth of a friendship built through countless rehearsals and performances long ago. That night became one of those Tony moments that people never forget, the kind that sends a wave of nostalgia across an entire audience and lingers for decades. Somewhere along this journey, Norman Lear saw what Bea could do on a stage. Her strength in Mame stayed with him, and when he needed someone who could match Archie Bunker's fire in a guest appearance on All in the Family in December 1971, she became the perfect choice. Her character, Maude Findlay, clashed with Archie in a way that felt both funny and uncomfortable, and viewers immediately sensed that something new had arrived. The reaction was so strong, CBS moved fast and created Maude, which premiered in September 1972. The show took on subjects people usually whispered about, from abortion to feminism to social justice. And Bea delivered every line with a mix of authority and vulnerability that made Maude unforgettable. She won the 1977 Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series, yet behind the success, her marriage to Gene Saks was unraveling. The pressure of fame and long workdays pulled them apart little by little until they finally divorced in 1978. That same year, Bea decided to end Maude as well. She told the New York Times that the show had run out of controversy, which was her way of saying it had reached the end of what it could challenge. Ending her marriage and her most famous role in the same year became a turning point, one that pushed her toward a different chapter of her life. Looking back at Maude's journey, one moment stands apart, like a bolt of lightning. In November 1972, CBS aired Maude's Dilemma, a 2-part storyline where Maude learns she is pregnant at 47 and chooses abortion. It happened just 2 months before Roe v. Wade and forced families across America to face a topic they had never expected to see at 8 p.m. in their living rooms. Nearly 7,000 protest letters arrived at CBS after the first broadcast. Most of the network's 200 affiliates aired it anyway, and only 2 refused. The reaction grew even bigger when the episode was set for reruns. The United States Catholic Conference launched a massive campaign urging priests nationwide to pressure local stations against rebroadcasting it. They circulated materials to about 20,000 priests, and Catholic groups organized boycotts of CBS and its advertisers. When CBS aired the reruns in August 1973, almost 40 affiliates refused to show them, and others pushed them past 11 p.m. Catholic leaders called on 48 million Catholics to boycott CBS on those dates. Advertisers pulled back in fear, and for the first time in CBS history, no major sponsor bought ad time. PepsiCo, Alberto Culver, General Mills, and others backed away. Even the single sponsor that had agreed to stay, J.B. Williams, withdrew at the last moment. CBS had to add printed and verbal warnings before the episode. The backlash was intense, but the cultural impact stayed, carving Maude's place in television history. While the public saw the finished product, the cast felt something very different during the first week of filming in 1972. Bea insisted on a 90-hour rehearsal schedule, stretching almost 13 hours a day for 7 days straight. Sitcoms had never worked like that, but Bea came from theater and couldn't imagine doing it any other way. Bill Macy, Adrienne Barbeau, and Rue McClanahan were also stage-trained, yet each had their own style. Macy liked improvising. Barbeau worked through emotion. McClanahan planned everything carefully. Bea pushed them to blend those instincts into something tight and polished. And the discipline she demanded became the reason Maude felt so precise on screen. Norman Lear later admitted that her approach frustrated many people at first, but it made the show stronger and sharper than most sitcoms airing at the time. That discipline carried into how she handled scripts. Bea fought for lines that mattered, especially in heavy episodes like Maude's Dilemma. She believed the story needed honesty, not softened edges. She insisted on keeping dialogue that showed Maude's doubt and fear and strength. Writers sometimes called her demanding, but they respected her instincts because she cared about saying something real. Her intensity protected the core of the show and helped cement it as one of the most daring sitcoms of its era. But behind all that structure and pressure, there were softer moments too. Adrienne Barbeau remembered Bea as someone who was warm, funny, and welcoming to new actors. She included people, guided them, and shaped the environment so the cast worked more like a family than a TV ensemble. Adrienne often said they stayed close friends until Bea's death in 2009, sharing memories and laughter long after the cameras stopped rolling. Rue McClanahan, on the other hand, saw a different side. She called Bea eccentric and deeply attached to routine, which sometimes kept them at a distance. They respected each other, yet never formed a strong personal bond. Even so, Rue always recognized that Bea's discipline elevated everyone's work. Bea Arthur did not want to jump into another sitcom when the Golden Girls came her way, and that feeling stayed with her right up to the moment she finally agreed. She had already built a name for herself with Maude and knew what it meant to carry a show. So stepping into Dorothy Zbornak felt like stepping back into the same kind of fire. Still, the producers kept pushing because they believed the show needed her. What changed everything for her was seeing Rue McClanahan attached. They had worked together on Maude, and that old trust tugged her forward. So she said yes, even though she walked in with hesitation. Once she stepped into Dorothy's shoes, something clicked. Her performance grew sharper with time, and in 1988, the Emmy she won proved she had made the right choice. Yet, even as the cameras captured her strength, something underneath was already shifting, because tension on set had started almost as soon as filming began. The moment Bea met Betty White on set, the air seemed to tighten. From the first day, Bea disliked the way Betty broke character during live tapings to play with the audience. It irritated her deeply. Producer Marcia Posner Williams later said Bea would call her at home just to vent about it. One time, Bea saw Betty in a grocery store and called Williams again, furious for no real reason other than Betty's presence. During these calls, she used harsh language to describe her, and it didn't stop there. She used the same slur in front of Williams's husband, even in front of Betty herself, while sitting beside her on a flight. Everyone behind the scenes knew the feud was real, and it hung over the set like a shadow no one could escape. Things got even heavier in 1986, when Betty White won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. All three leads were nominated, and Betty was the first to take the award. Bea believed she deserved it. She had come from the stage, from dramatic roles, from a place where acting was craft, not charm, and she saw Betty as more of a television personality than a serious performer. Rue McClanahan later said that Bea took the loss personally, and Bea's son confirmed it. Even though Bea won her own Emmy in 1988, the bruise from Betty's win never fully faded. It stayed with her, and the silent resentment shaped every year that followed. The strange part was how Bea acted socially. Rue McClanahan once said Bea would only join group activities if Betty was present, almost as if her rivalry needed a center point. It created an awkward rhythm on the set. Everyone felt it, and they learned to work around it. Producers watched the way the tension spread and knew how unstable the atmosphere had become. Later on, they said the rivalry grew so big that it helped push the show toward its ending, because Bea's frustration simply never calmed down. When the seventh season wrapped in 1992, all 4 cast members had contracts ending at the same time. NBC wanted another year. Rue was ready. Estelle Getty was ready. Betty was ready. But Bea refused to sign. She was 70 at the time and felt tired of the role, tired of the work, and especially tired of sharing the set with Betty White. Producers tried to convince her, but she didn't move. She told them she was finished. That one decision ended the entire series, because everyone knew the Golden Girls could not continue without Dorothy. Fans were shocked, but the truth was that the show had been holding itself together despite the friction for years. People behind the scenes confirmed that Bea and Betty's feud was much deeper than anyone imagined. Bea never softened. She used the same slur publicly and privately, and she avoided taking photos with Betty at events. She wouldn't stand near her if she could help it. The flight incident, where Bea insulted Betty while sitting right next to her, became one of the stories everyone whispered about, because it showed how open her resentment had become. Crew members saw it happen. Producers experienced it firsthand. The tension wasn't rumor. It was the daily reality of their workplace. After Bea walked away, NBC tried to redirect the momentum with the Golden Palace. Betty White, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty returned as the core group and moved into a Miami hotel setting. Don Cheadle and Cheech Marin joined the cast, hoping to bring new energy. But the chemistry felt different without Dorothy, and the spark that held the original show together faded quickly. Ratings dropped, and the show lasted only 1 season with 24 episodes. It made something clear. Bea Arthur's presence had been the backbone of the original series, and without her, the magic fell apart. Bea's work on the original show brought her many honors. She won the Emmy in 1988 and earned 5 nominations during the run. It was her second Emmy overall, the first one coming from Maude in 1977. But even with these achievements, there was always that competitive streak that never let go. She never forgot Betty's 1986 win, and even her victory 2 years later didn't wash away the frustration. Awards meant something to her, and the rivalry wrapped itself around those feelings. When the Golden Girls ended, Bea stayed away from reunions that included Betty White. Betty talked openly about the show and expressed love for her co-stars, but she never seemed to understand just how deep Bea's anger ran. Bea kept her distance for the rest of her life. She avoided events and interviews that would put her in the same room as Betty. This quiet refusal turned into a permanent divide that lasted until Bea's death in 2009. It made people realize how separate their on-screen friendship was from the truth. In 2002, long after walking away from the show, Bea Arthur returned to Broadway with her one-woman performance Just Between Friends. She was 78. The show began in January at the Booth Theater and was set to close on March 10th, but strong demand pushed it to April 14th. She performed 17 songs, shared stories, and even revisited painful memories from her past, including the moment Jerome Robbins cut her role from Fiddler on the Roof. Fans who knew her only as Maude or Dorothy were surprised by how much emotion she revealed. The show earned her a Tony nomination for Best Special Theatrical Event, proving that her power on stage had never faded. People who knew her also saw a softer, private side. Bea served quietly as chairwoman of the Art Attack Foundation, which offered scholarships and support to young performers. She never advertised her involvement. Growing up, she had struggled to find a way into the industry, and helping young artists felt personal to her. Her Broadway show even raised funds for the foundation. Under her guidance, the foundation supported hundreds of performers with training, education, and stage opportunities. Behind her tough exterior, she carried a quiet generosity that shaped lives without anyone knowing. In her later years, she still surprised audiences. She took guest roles on shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm and Malcolm in the Middle, where her role as Mrs. White in the first season finale earned her an Emmy nomination in 2000. Her timing was sharp, her delivery steady, and her scenes with Dewey became some of the funniest moments of the episode. This final nomination was her 10th, marking the end of a long and remarkable television journey. Her willingness to shift into new comedic styles showed she could move with the times and charm a new generation.